So I was not expecting to make a part 2 to the previous video where I showed you how to pick up an object. I happened to just use a crane just because it seemed simple, but I got asked the question, how do we do the crane? So yeah, let's do that. We'll make it simple because ultimately this is just a modeling and a rigging tutorial. It's not mind-blowing, and I suppose these resources are available like all over the place anyway. But be that as it may, let's crack on with this. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to make this quick column here, and we're going to Control T to triangulate this. And let's come across into the modifier panel, and I think we'll go with skin and change this over to vertex select mode and Control A to scale that bad boy down. There we go, nice little bit of scaffold. I'm not the biggest fan of these corners, but I'm too lazy to fix that, quite frankly. Okay, let's grab another cube and scale that by 0.5. Grab that, stick it on there. It's going to be the cabin for the crane, and we can add in another skin modifier just there. And once again, Control A, scale it down. Someone can live in there, no probs. And then we'll duplicate that on the x-axis and edit. I think what I want to do is I want to scale this down on everything except the x-axis by 0.5. And then maybe we can grab this on the x. Oh, heavens. Let's Alt-Z to get X-ray mode to make sure we're getting all of those. Grab on the X. Move that out to about there. Perhaps we'll move it precisely 2, and now we can add in a couple of cuts just like this, and just like we did before, Control T to triangulate, and that gives us a nice little mesh. Okay, basic crane done there. Now I think what I'm going to do is I'm just going to do a couple more tweaks. Literally, I'm going to scale these out a smidgen, give it a little bit of can't think of the word. Stability. Stability is the word that I'm looking for. And then I'm just going to go ahead and apply all these modifiers just so these are actually meshes now. And I'm actually just going to join all these together. No, I'm going to join this one to this one. And now I'm going to join them all together. Sorry, I'm just thinking on the fly here. Make all of these one fat mesh. Okay. So that's like the body of the crane done. We'll do some animation of this and some rigging of this later. Let's focus on the actual grabber. I'm going to start off making a UV cylinder, and let's go into isolation mode just so that we can focus on this one. I'm going to edit, rotate X90, and I'm going to scale that at 0.1. A couple of faces, inset these, and then right click and bridge faces. This can be like the main sort of like pivot point on there. We can select everything and we can duplicate them, move them on the Z axis, and we can scale it by 0.5. And let's take away a big chunk of these here. So delete those faces there, and it's probably not necessary to put a face here, but I'm going to anyway. And then let's grab that on the Z axis and just plunge that into there, just like that. Now, let's go back into face select mode. And in side view, we'll grab maybe probably about right. I'm going to duplicate that. And then I'm going to E to extrude, move that on. We don't need it moving on 1. Grab 0.1. Yeah, no. Grab another 0.1. Probably about right. Longer, I think. Grab 0.1. So grab total 0.3. And I'm going to scale on the x-axis by -1 just to give us that curvature there. And then that's going to allow me to duplicate this. And we're going to grab on the x-axis by, won't be 0.3, will it? No. Let's just grab and use our snapping tool because I can't think in my head what I need to move that across by. 0.5. No, it's not quite 0.5. It doesn't matter. We'll just eyeball this. We don't need to be precise. That will be fine. And then we can do this again. Shift D on the X. Move that to there. I think if we select both of these, scale it on the Y axis just to make it a little bit smaller. And then let's grab this and this. And let's grab these outer edges with edge select, boom, 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 and then Control B. Let's just give these a little bit of a bevel. Let's make it just like that. and then we can shade auto smooth. This is going to be the claw bit, so we can probably scale that on the x-axis by 0, and because it will be rotating around these points, you see. So we need to think about how the grabber's going to grab on. So we could maybe like extrude this, grab this perhaps, and maybe just like move these around, make it like a grabby bit perhaps. That'll do, I suppose. I mean, ultimately it comes down to what you want to do. So next thing we can do is we can press the period key and hit 3D cursor as our point of origin, transformation point of origin. Come into face select, and we can select this and this and this. Shift D to duplicate, Control M and then X, and that will change. Well, that will mirror those at that side. Don't need to mess around with the mirror modifier. But really, that's the most basic grabber you could probably want to go for. So let's start by adding in armature. So there we go. We're going to edit mode. I'm just going to rotate this 180 degrees, and then just going to press Alt and R because it seems to rotate it around. I think that's to do with like quaternion rotation, being honest. I'm assuming it does that. But anyway, yeah, Alt and R clears the rotation. And let's just grab this, move that up there, and we'll just call this grabber root. And now what I want to do is I want to extrude Z, and we're just going to do this as grabber control, and then x-axis. No, in fact, let's not do x-axis enabled. That annoys me sometimes. We're just going to do E, and then we're going to just drag this out somewhere. It doesn't matter where initially. Let's come back into object mode, into edit mode, and then we're going to Shift S cursor selected. Then we're going to go back into edit mode and Shift S selection to cursor. And what that does is it perfectly aligns this bone in the center of these wheels. We're going to have to Alt R to recalculate the roll on that. And then finally we can do E again and just conform that to the x-axis. It doesn't really matter too much where we put it. You can align it directly with the center there, but as we don't have any transformation points at the end there, then it doesn't matter what direction that bone is pointing. Okay, so we'll rename this, and we'll call this claw underscore top dot left and claw underscore bottom dot left. Then we can select those two bones. And now if you can't see your bones, just as a little tip, come to viewport display in the little orange square here, the object properties, come to viewport display, and we can click in front and wire, and that just gives you a little bit more visibility of your armature. So we can click these two bones here, and we can come up to this armature menu, and we can symmetrize them, and it'll just bop them across to the other side. Okay, so what we probably want to think about is kind of want to medium point. So if we grab both of these and we rotate them, double X on the x-axis. We need to change this to individual origins, rotate X, X, and that'll rotate both of them equally. And so we can see here that the tips are going to join in just here. So really we want a bone which kind of comes down or starts from there roughly, just as a marker more than anything else. It's not really useful, but for anything other than being the marker. But anyway, yeah, so let's extrude on the Z-axis. Alt P, clear parent, and we're just going to grab this, move it down on the Z-axis, pop it to about there. That's about right, and we'll call that grab point. I want to make sure. Oh yeah, so we need to keep that parented. So I cleared the parent, but we want to actually just make it so it's connected. It's parented but not connected. That's what we've done there. And now there's also nothing else that we need to do there, in fact, because everything is fine. So what we can do now, we come into object mode. So we're going to pose mode, Alt R, Alt G, Alt S to clear all the rotations and scales and blah, blah, blah. Object mode. And then we come to the crane, the grabber, the claw, and we click on it. We shift click on the armature, Control P with empty groups. And now all we need to do is bring up our vertex groups in the object data properties and come to edit. And what we can do is we can grab this one here, and we can say this is the claw bottom left. We can assign that, and then hide it. And then we can grab this one and this one, floor top left, sign, and then hide. Then we do the same for this side, floor bottom right, sign, hide, this one and this one, floor top right, sign, and then hide that. And then that just leaves this one and this one. And we will say grab a root. Okay, now let's unhide everything. Come into objects mode and then into pose mode. And now hopefully, there we go. Rotate X, X. Boop, 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 boop. So we could probably say that this needs to go up a little bit more to like around there. So we can just adjust that, come into edit mode, grab this on the Z axis, move it to about there. It doesn't need to be perfect. Not really, not for what I've done with it anyway. Yeah, so that is a good thing to have there for attaching objects anyway, and you can adjust accordingly. Right, Alt G. Right, so let's get a little bit more technical with this. So I'm even sitting up in my chair for this one. Right, so first things first, the fun part, the grabber control. Let's come into objects mode and let's just make an empty, and we'll make it a sphere, and we'll just rename this to WGT grabber control. I don't need it in caps. Grabber control. Got a bad habit of typing in caps when I need not be typing in caps. And we can move this to a new collection, and we'll call it WGT. Create that, and we can actually hide that. We don't need that to be active for any reason whatsoever. But what we can do is if we come into pose mode for the armature, we come to the bone tab down here, we can specifically go to the viewport display, and in the custom shape, custom objects, we can type WGT grabber control, and it changes that to this circle instead, or this sphere I should say, which makes it a little bit more pleasing. And what we can do with this is we can say, okay, well, let's add a new constraint, and we're going to do a limit scale constraint on that one. And I suppose we don't really need to do all of them, but we're going to anyway. We're going to click this affect transform button as well, and we're going to do the minimum scale of 1 and maximum scale of 2. So now it will scale between 1 and 2. That's kind of big. It's a little bit bigger than we need it to. So we can change the visual scale to like say 0.5. I think that's a little bit nicer. And I've also just noticed that this one's been parented to the wrong object. So let's just take this and we're going to Control P, keep offset to this grabber root. So I had it parented to this one by mistake. It needs to be this one. Okay, so, okay, right. Why do I need to do that? So let's take this one, for example, this one bone here. And we're going to do, now this is something that I think when I've watched tutorials on similar kind of things, people, they like to opt for the using drivers to do this. And I don't know, I find that a little bit, I don't know, overkill, and also, yeah, I think it's easier doing it this way, basically. So we're going to grab a transformation constraint, and we need to target the armature, and then we need to target this grabber control. And what we're going to say is we're going to change this to local space and local space, and we're going to say we're going to map from the scale, and we're going to map to the rotation. So we're going to say we'll base it on the X axis. So we'll say from 1 to 2, because we're going to move this. This is only going to go from 1 to 2. You know, that's the maximum and minimum that it's ever going to be. So we're going to keep this range between 1 and 2. And what this is going to do is it's going to translate this value into the values that we put here. And so the way we're going to figure out what the values are is we're just going to rotate this on the x-axis and just kind of get a feel for what's the maximum range that's available. It always confuses me with quaternions, so I'm just going to change that to X, Y, Z Euler. And so we can see there that's almost 60 degrees as the maximum range. We probably want it maybe 55 or something like that. So what we can say is that we can change this, and we're going to use this. We're only going to use this top one, the x-axis, because if we can come into the armature data tab here, and then we can click on axis, we can see here that this is the axis that we're going to rotate it on. We're going to say the minimum is 0. No, in fact, the minimum is -55 and the maximum is 0. Okay, now that pings around here, but if you press Alt R, it'll go back to the normal position, and then you can scale this and that will move accordingly. That's all we need to do in that one. So this is just simply it's changing the range of 1 to 2 to -55 to 0. That's all that's doing. And I find that a lot easier than using drivers. Now what we can do is we can click on this bone and this bone and this bone, and then finally the bone that we've already set the constraint on. And we can click on this little drop down arrow here. We're going to copy that to selected, and then Alt R, Alt G, and then if I've done this right, there we go. Opens and it closes the claw. And we like that. It makes it a lot easier because that means we only need to animate this one circle here, this one sphere. And you could put 4 claws on if you wanted. Just swizzle, like copy, paste them, rotate them. Just as long as you're making sure that your x-axis on each bone is pointing sort of in the right direction. Because you see here, this one's pointing forward, this one's pointing backwards. So if you put another leg kind of going this way, the x-axis would need to come down in this direction, and then another one here, the x-axis would need to be going in that direction. So just bear that in mind. Okay, so what we can do now is we can come over to this armature tab, and you see this bone collections. We're going to create another collection. We're going to call it controls, and we're going to take this sphere here and we're going to assign it to this one. And we don't want it in the bones collection anymore. So let's remove that. And I think for this one, the target, we can put that one, we can remove that from there and put that one into the controls section as well. I think we could probably do the same, use the same widget for this one, except we could probably make that like 0.1. We don't need that huge at all. While we're looking at this one, in fact, let's add another constraint, and we're just going to say limit location, and we're just going to enable all of these, affect transform, and we're going to do that in local space. And what that means is you can't move that. That's just going to stay static there. There's nothing you can do to move that. You can rotate it if you want, but I don't know why you would want to. Okay, so right, so this main controller here, this main, what's it called, the root, that's actually a control as well. So we'll assign that to the controls and we'll remove it from the bones. And now this depends on what you want to, how you want to animate this. If you want to make it very robotic, then do this. If you want to have a little bit more freedom, like if you want it to kind of swing, then you don't need to necessarily do this, but it kind of keeps it a little bit more rigid. So constraints, we're going to limit the location of this one, and we're going to do this on the y-axis. Like I know Z is up, but you need to look at the bones because we need to change this to the local space. Currently, we're set at 0, 0, 0, and I'm going to change this to minimum y of 0 and a maximum of, we'll just put this as a placeholder in for the minute. And effects transform. Oh, wait, is that? Okay, that's world space. Do apologize. Wait, why is that going on the y? I'm so confused. Oh, no, I was right the first time. Kinda. It's gone backwards. Right. We'll change that to -2 and that's 0. There we go. That's done it. Took me a minute there to think about it. So that's just basically going to constrain it between those 2 points there. So imagine that you're on like you had a limited range where you could take it to. And I think realistically, we probably don't want it to go any lower than this point here, do we? Really? I think if we grab that, if we say that was the floor, about there, we don't want it going any lower than that, do we? -1.85. So that's as low as it'll go. Actually, I'm just going to change that to -0.85 on maximum, and I'm going to change this to 2. I'm getting myself all confused now. Okay, that's it. Yeah, so it's going to go from -2 as a minimum to a maximum of -0.85. Just trying to get these negative numbers right in my head. Because for some reason, upwards is negative in this space because it's relative to this bone, and the positive axis is pointing downwards. So yeah, it's all upside down. So the higher up we go, the larger this negative number becomes. Oh, yeah, okay, right. Let's come into object mode for a minute, and we're just going to make a plane. and let's go into edit mode. And I'm going to rotate this on the Z by 45. And I'm going to scale that 0.1, grab on the Y-axis 0.1, and I'm going to shift D to duplicate, and I'm going to grab that on the Y-axis negative 0.2, just like that. And then take these two vertices that are overlapping, and we can delete those. In fact, we're going to dissolve those, just make it flat just like that. And then if you press Control R to loop cut, it'll just give you a little point there because it's not a quad, so it can't make a loop. One there, and then we select that one, Control Shift B to bevel, and then we can take that edge and create a face. So now we've got ourselves a little uppy downy arrow. And so what we're going to do is we're going to move that. Now we're going to rename it WGT for widget underscore arrows. Okay, move that into the widget collection. Come back into pose mode, and then we'll take this root bone here and we'll change that to widget arrows, just like that. Okay, and now what we can do is we can actually come into this bone collections and we can just hide those. So now all that we've got on display is this arrow here and this one here. Oh, we can still rotate that. That's cool. That's planned, I mean. So you can still get a little bit of a sway if you need to. Of course, this is very basic. You could do a lot more to it to make things, nicer, suitable for your animation. Right, so let's come out of isolation mode and we can move this somewhere on the x-axis. We're going to move that to like here, I suppose. That's actually about right. I was going to say we could probably adjust this constraint if needed, but now that's good. All good. So let's come into edit mode again. And in fact, let's center our cursor on this object. Cursor to selected. And we will add in armature single bone. Edit this. Scale that up to about, I suppose it doesn't matter, to there. And then we're going to extrude x-axis. Do you know what? Let's just make it diddy. And we're going to Alt P. We're going to disconnect the bone. Grab that on the x-axis. Shimmy that across to there. Okay. And then we're going to, in fact, let me just subdivide this bone. And I'm just going to grab that on the Z, grab that on the Z. Okay, so we'll just call this one tower root. And we're going to call this one turn thing. We'll call this thing. Right. So we can do a similar kind of process as we did before. We'll parent stuff first. So we're going to Control P with empty groups. And then we come into edit mode. We select all these bottom vertices and assign and thing assign. And in fact, we probably actually want to assign this one to the turn thing. So now when I come into pose mode here, rotate on the Z axis, that's almost working correctly. Almost, but apparently we've missed something. So let's just come back into LL sign. Why are you being awkward? Right, so let's just do a little bit of debugging here. So we're going to enable this armature to be visible in edit mode, because what we're going to do is want to click on one of these vertices and see what's happened. And turns out that we've actually put some of these vertices in the tower root, which is not what we want to do. And a quick solution here, all we do is we select all these vertices and we click on tower root and remove. Boom, fixed. So let's Alt R, Alt G, Alt S. We probably want to constrain this one, so we can say constrain at a limit rotation. So we want to limit the X and the Z in the local space. And so that should allow us to just, can't rotate that around. Oh, we got a glitch there as well, actually. Oh, another glitch. Gosh, I'm not doing very well with this, everything in the tower root, it seems. All right, let's get rid of that one. There we go. Fixed that problem. Yeah, so that's constraint to that axis. We're going to do the same for this one, except first of all, let's put the arrow widget in there. And I want to move that up a little bit, GX, just so it's like in line with this, so it looks about right. And then maybe increase the scale of that, I think. Maybe do like 3, maybe. And I just want to move it up a little bit. Z. It doesn't really matter too much about this one because we're not having anything influence it. There we go, that's fine. Right, okay, so let's add in In pose mode, another constraint. So we're going to limit the location of this one again and turn on our axis so we can see where everything is. So that is the Y axis that we want to be running along. So we can change this, change this, change this, change this, effect transform, and we do local space. So basically, let me just address this effect transform and what that actually means. So let's just turn this off for one moment, right? If we grab this, we can see here that we're moving. So you see the x-axis is up, right? So we can move up, right? Even though it's not visibly moving, you can see there that it's currently at the 7.2 mark. Now let's just Alt-R-Alt-G. Let's add the limit location for the y-axis. We want to, where's it going to go to? Go from 0 to negative 2.6. So the minimum is negative 2.6 and the maximum is 0, right? So this is going to move from here to here, okay? So what's going to happen is if you're trying to move this to the end but you keep going, you can see there that the y-axis is running up to like 8.6. And you might think, okay, well, that's fine because it's where it wants to be visually. Now, if you were to say animate this, let me show you exactly. So Alt-R-Alt-G-S, we'll grab this, we'll move that to its limit, and we'll put in a keyframe there, and then we'll move on to here. And let's just say you want it to come out and then back in again. So you grab it along the y-axis and you move it, you move it, you move it, and you put in your keyframe, and then you want it to go back again to where it was. And so let's just quickly duplicate this. What's going to happen is you're going to see it animate and it's going to pause, even though this, in theory, what you're looking for is move out and move back in again. There's this huge pause before it goes back, and that's because you're actually animating it between this first position, and then when it gets to here, you're actually animating it to this position over here. So when you click Effects Transform, what actually happens is it limits it to the location visually. And so you can see here now the location is 0. And let's just grab this, and there we go. So that's limited it to the 2.6. You see how that's 2.9 currently? If we just grab that to move it, it just snaps it back where it needs to be. And now when we play this animation, boom, boom, it behaves the way that we would have expected it to behave. Let's get rid of those keyframes, Alt-R, Alt-G, Alt-S. That's that done. So what we need to do now is we need to combine these two armatures. And this is going to be absolutely fine because we have no duplication names. So we can press Control-J and it will add those together. And so now, fingers crossed, if we grab this, nope. If we come into edit mode and we grab this one and we Control-P and we do keep offset, to that one, and then we come back into pose mode. Now this will move with this, that will move with that. Maybe we need to move this bone down a little bit perhaps, or the visual of this bone, just so it's, because that feels a little bit misleading. I'm just going to move that all the way down to there, just to make it feel like a little bit more reasonable. Oh wait, we lost the armature. Let me just go back a little bit. Try this again. Right, so what we want to be doing here, just temporarily, come to the modifiers and we're going to press Alt-P. We're going to clear parent, keep transformation, delete the armature, right? Then we're going to come into this grabber armature and we're going to Control-J, join that there. And then we're going to do Control-P, armature deform. There we go. So now, as I was saying, move this one down a little bit. Where are you? Bugger. Bring that right down to there, and then I think I still need to join those together. Control P, keep offset, pose mode. This one will move like this, and this one will move like this. No problemo. Right. Okay. Now what we can probably do is we need a rope between these two. I'm just being a little bit extra here. Right, so I'm just going to cast selected, and then I'm going to add in a curve, a path. I'm going to rotate that by 90 degrees, and I'm going to edit mode. I'm going to scale that down. If I select medium point, I'm going to scale that down. I'm going to select those, dissolve, grab Z up. Grab that one on the Z axis as well, and it didn't look like that was finishing where I wanted it to finish. Right, and then we can come into this this curve properties here, and we can come to geometry, and we can do under bevel depth, just bring it to 0.1. Got a bit of a string there. You'll probably notice though this kind of like doesn't move. So we come into pose mode, we select this here, and then we come back into object mode and we shift click on curve, edit. You got to do this exactly the way that I'm doing it. Select this bottom vertex here, and what we're going to do is we're going to press Control H, hook to selected object bone. Right, and now when we come into pose mode, it shortens and lengthens in response to the position of that bone. And we can do the same thing with this one. So we select this bone, we go into object mode, shift select, and we go to edit. We select that one and we do Control H, hook to selected bone. And now pose mode, so the rope moves with that and it moves with that. And we can rotate it if we want to. I think there's just one. No, that's working. Yeah. Okay. So yeah. So that basically works how we want it to. And there you have a crane, a basic crane that does the basic functions of a basic crane. So let's and then it's just a case of animating it. Animate it however you damn well please. Okay, so if you want to learn how to actually grab objects, then this is actually my previous tutorial. I will link it at the end screen, which should be on screen now. There's also a nice subscribe button, so if you want to hit that subscribe button for any future Blender tutorials, then please do. And if not, then just give me a thumbs up, because if you've made it to the end, you must have got something out of this video, right? Yeah. Okay, cool. I'll see you in the next one. Maybe.